with Dr. Anas Ansar. Sir, you were hearing Norman Floyd Barnes trying to project how he felt regarding some of these issues in the Middle East. We see countless times that United Arab Emirates is the one that is being targeted relentlessly by Iran, and I believe it's an easier target for Iran to somewhat project their power over the Strait of Hormuz into that territory. However, United States President Donald Trump, he has stated that he will blow them to smithereens to some sort if they were to stop or halt the processes of Project Freedom. How would you value this updating story?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I think there are 2 points on this. One is whether we can seriously take the threats that coming from the President Donald Trump, or the commitment that he makes, or the negotiations that he claims are on the table, because we have seen repeatedly there were counter arguments and there were confusions, there were deadlines being changed by the President himself, and of course directly via his Truth Social platform. So what President Trump projects, or the threats that he is delivering to the Iranian authority, is something I think we cannot totally rely on. So and on UAE, I think this, of course, Iran clearly sees UAE as an existential threat. It's a threat, first of all, because it is one of the strongest allies in the Middle East, particularly in the Gulf region, for the US and its allies. And secondly, UAE and its territories have been providing safe space, according to Iran again, that sort of disrupt the Iranian interest in particularly in the Straits of Hormuz. And thirdly, Iran, I think, kind of like considers not only the UAE, I would also consider the entire Gulf region as a proxy to the US expansionism, or US war of expansion, war of influence, and war of dominance that has been taking place there for the last 2 months or so.
President Putin previously announced a 32-hour cessation of hostilities for Orthodox Easter in April, with Ukrainian President Zelensky confirming that Ukraine would honor it. This is just comes to show how far one would go, and what would be the limits in attacking a neighbor and attacking a foe, a rival in the battlefield. Coming to ask Dr. Anas Ansar, as you see, there is understanding between the two leaders, given that a specific event is scheduled to happen in a matter of days. However, it's not similarly seen in other conflicts worldwide. I want to get your observation, how you see the last 4.5 years of retaliation between these two nations. It widely has Europe broken and scared and worrying how far Russia would go in pursuing its offensive towards Europe, towards Western Europe as well.
I think fundamentally it shows the cracks in the world system, first of all. And secondly, it signals a clear rupture in the world order that we have long been familiar with, and particularly in the case of Russia-Ukraine war, or Russia's war on Ukraine. Clearly this has been sidelined, given the fact that there are many brewing conflicts, and hardly any region in the world that you can imagine at present time that is not entangled in a war, right? And particularly the Middle East crisis, the US-Iran conflict, and the ongoing Israel Gaza war, and
as well as southern Lebanon as well.
In the Lebanon. So for both for Russia and particularly for Ukraine, they both are struggling to sort of like really find a viable solution to this crisis, and clearly Russia is in the upper hand given the turmoil that is sort of giving them some sorts of leverage, particularly when it comes to the US engagement with Iran and in the Middle East. So the entire frontier with Ukraine is kind of now invisible in the world sort of scenario, and Russia has been expanding lately, and the declared or the announced again open-ended truce between Russia and Ukraine is, I think, rather symbolic than probably any meaningful step towards solution to bring peace and order in the region.
Right. Quite importantly to be noted, 4.5 years is definitely a long-term, long-running war, and some of the themes have been taken out of context from the Ukraine-Russia war. We've seen Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the Gulf nations. It happened a couple of weeks back, and in which they started to analyze how far and the weaponry used by Russia on Ukraine are in the similar pattern of Iran versus the Gulf nations. This kind of terminology sharing or methodist sharings are quite important to have the upper hand in the battlefield. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
With this very reason?
Absolutely. I mean, you probably have also noticed Ukraine, despite being in the war itself, were offering technological support to the Gulf states, particularly in terms of intercepting drones and protecting its airspace. So I think it's a very interesting sort of era that we are entering in. I don't really see any major powers or involved parties in all these wars are probably ready to have a quick withdrawal from the conflicts that they're involved in. So somehow there is a sense or kind of signaling that we are going into a long battle, and countries are somehow preparing for that or probably getting used to this, particularly if we look at the case of Ukraine, Russia. It's dragging in its 5th year. Similarly with the situation in Gaza and in Lebanon, and Iran's sort of resilience or Iran's sort of counter attack on the US interest in the Gulf region also says probably this is not going to sort of give up soon.